We're going to talk about being different tonight, and then tomorrow we got some other stuff to talk about that I think is just terrific, and I want to thank Robert for inviting me to come. So what about being different? This is a pretty important subject. I don't want to just make a list, though, of ways that Christians are different. That would be too easy and maybe predictable. I want to go deeper than that. I want to talk about some fundamental things. I want to get down into what the Bible calls the hidden man of your heart, if we can. I know that door is kind of hard to open, but I want to go through it, and let's talk about some very rudimentary, fundamental things about that room, your heart. The word world is interesting in the Bible because it's used in more than one way. In 2 John 2 and verse 15, how about that? Here we go. I can't see it on the back. The word world is found in 1 John 2 and 15. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Now, I want you to look at that verse. I want you to look at it and think about the word world. Now, it's not talking about the planet. It's not wrong to love the planet. Don't you love trees and the sunset? And don't you love living here? And if any man will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil. The Bible doesn't tell you that it's wrong to love the world as the planet. That's not wrong. And it's not wrong to love people in the world. That's not what it's talking about. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. John 3:16. So that's not what it's talking about. The Greek word is cosmos. Don't love the cosmos. You probably have heard that word, but cosmos just means an arrangement or an order of things. And we use it for a lot of different things. You know, you think about the girls putting on their cosmetics. And so, by the definition, what it means is that they're putting their face in order. I mean nothing derogatory by that, but it's cosmos. It means an order of things or an arrangement of things. And when you talk about, well, you might talk about the world of finance. What do you mean by that? Well, you're thinking about banking and how things are ordered in banking and the legalities of banking. Or you might talk about the world of agriculture. And you'd be talking about the kinds of things that are true for farmers and all of that. Look, that's not what this is, of course. This is the world that has to do with your enemy. Now, you have an arch enemy in life. And if you're a Christian, when you became a Christian, you declared battle with him, and you know who he is. The world, in this context, has to do with the arrangement that is constructed by Satan. It is a mindset. It is an order of things according to him. And what you got to know is it's the antithesis of Christ. It is opposition to Christ. And so when the Bible talks about how that we shouldn't be worldly, this is what it's talking about. It's talking about an order or arrangement of things that originates with your enemy, who is Satan. Now, I want to show you some things about this because this is really rudimentary. This gets down to right where we live in your philosophy about your life and about being a Christian. All right, let me tell you about the world. One, it has a prince. And the Bible says, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. What's it talking about? Satan. The world I'm describing now has a prince. Number two, it has a belief system. Colossians 2 and verse 8. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. This describes the mentality, the disposition, the doctrine of the world that's governed by its prince. Here's three. It'll get dirt on you. 2 Peter 2:20. If after they have escaped the pollutions of the world, through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they're again entangled therein, overcome. The latter end is worse with them than the beginning. And so you remember what James said, right? To keep yourself unspotted from the world. You get dirt on you when you get into the world. And that's not talking about the earth. It's talking about this arrangement or order that's governed by the prince, who is Satan. Here's number 4. It will enslave you. Now, don't you be messing around with this. I'm telling you, this is factual. Galatians 4:3, even so we, when we were children, were in bondage. That is, when we were young, before we became Christians, we were in bondage under the elements of the world. 5, it's a sin to be friends with it. Now listen closely to this, because this lecture is about being different. I'm telling you that God will not permit us to be friends with it. You can't be buddies with Satan. I know you would never do that. But listen to this. You adulterers and adulteresses, don't you know that the friendship of the world is to be an enemy with God? Whoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. How about that? Now, the adultery business there, it's not like in marriage. That's not it. It's that he's talking to people who are Christians, and so we're married to Christ. That's who we are. And you are a Christian, but you're linked up with this world, with the arrangement, the order of the prince. And he says that's adultery. Here's number 6. It says number 5, but it's really number 6. Ready? We understand it, but it's never going to understand us. We understand the world. You know who knows the most about sin? That's kind of funny, really, because you would think that would be the person who's most deeply involved in it, but the opposite is true. The more deeply involved a person is in sin, the less he knows about that. The person who knows the most about sin is the person who studies God's Word, has a clear head, and can identify it. I know what that is. I know where it leads. I know what it will do to me because I've read the Word of God. Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Therefore, the world doesn't know us. It knows us not, because it knew Him not. 1 John 3, verse 1. Isn't that something, too? Because, see, I'm kin to Him. As a Christian, I'm His disciple. The world doesn't understand us. The world doesn't understand you tonight here. The world doesn't get this, but we understand them. Here's the last one. The world hates you. And you can't get this confused. Don't get this confused. I'm telling you that the more light that is in you, the more light of Jesus Christ that's in you, the more the world will hate you. Well, you say, in school, it's really hard to be popular. I do the best I can, but it's hard to be popular. Let me tell you something. It's not going to be easy to be popular. As a matter of fact, if you're in a place that's worldly, the world's going to hate you. I don't like that very much. Well, it doesn't really matter. When we claim Jesus, when we obey the gospel and we become Christians, what it's saying is, I'm against the world. Listen, that prince, that mentality, that order, that arrangement that belongs to Satan, I'm out of this. And so Jesus said in John 7:7, the world cannot hate you, but me it hates, because I testify of it, that the works thereof are evil. If you do that like Jesus does, they're going to hate you. So John 15:18, if the world hate you, how would he respond to that? Lord, you don't understand. The world hates me. How would he respond? It's this. You know that it hated me before it hated you. All right. Now here's the last one about the world. It's in the Sermon on the Mount, and we start with verse 13. And Jesus said, you're the salt of the earth. He's talking to disciples, people who are following him. You're the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its saltiness, what's it good for? It's good to be cast out and trodden under the foot of man. Just use it for paving material. Walk on it. It's not good for anything. He said, you're the light of the world. Now that's very interesting, because here's the word world. You, Christians, you're the light of the world. A city set up on a hill cannot be hid, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light to all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify the Father which is in heaven. Now, you know that passage. You already know that. Walk through it with me. You are the light. Well, I think that's very interesting. Because he's not talking, this is the Sermon on the Mount, he's not talking about to the intelligentsia, the academia of Athens. It's not the smart, wonderful, schooled people. It's not that's not who he's talking to. He's not talking to the big brass of the Roman military and the centurions. Nope. He's talking to people, just common old people like you and me. He's talking to people who are fishermen and they're farmers and they're just common people who follow Jesus Christ. And he says, out of all the people in the world, you're the light. Now, that's very interesting to me, and it puts kind of a weight on your shoulders. So what are you going to do with your life? I'm going to be a Christian. You know what that means? You're it. It's a dark old world. It's a dark old world. And he says, you're the light. You're the light of the world. It's really interesting because the world thinks it's the light. I'm talking about the world in the sense that we're talking about it, that they have a prince, and they have an order of things and an arrangement, and that's the way they think, and it's the antithesis of Jesus Christ, against Jesus Christ. That's the world I'm talking about. They think they're the light. And the world has given us a lot of things. This is my iPhone 6S. Right there. I carry it with me all the time. I use this thing. I talk on it, it's a phone, but it does a lot more stuff. And you know that. The world gave this to me. They're pretty smart. We have an amazing technology out there medically. You can do a lot of microsurgeries and surgeries, procedures that people used to die from these kinds of things. Now you have the procedures and people would stay in the hospital a while, and now it's outpatient surgery. The world is brilliant like that. But the world thinks that it gives us light, which is rather ironic, really, and not true. What the world gives us is darkness. And over the last number of years, in America, we've really seen this, and I know that you're aware of this. But the world claims to have the light. I'm 58 years old. I know that sounds pretty old. Maybe it is. When I was in elementary school in Altus, Oklahoma, when Halloween time came, I have two sisters, an older one, younger one, 2 years either side. And we would go trick-or-treating. And we would go without any adults. I was in elementary school. I guess my oldest sister was, maybe she was in 6th grade and I was in 4th grade. We were just kids. But back then it was okay. Back then you just didn't think anything of it. I went to school in an elementary school that was, I would like to say miles, that would not be true. It was just several blocks from the house. And I would ride my bike. Weather permitting, I would ride my bike to school by myself. 4th grade. Nobody thought about that. Nobody thought anything about that. But we're not going to do that with our children today. Why not? It'd be just be way too dangerous. Would you let your children go trick-or-treating without adult supervision? Would you? Not in a million years, not for $1 million. Because it would be too dangerous. This world is too dangerous. You know what? The world believes that it's giving you light. But that's confusing intelligence with wisdom. What it's giving you is not light, because you're the light. See, you're the light. Those people who follow King Jesus, that's the light. The world walks in darkness. You say, wow, that's kind of impressive out of all this world and all those smart. I live in Huntsville, Alabama. That's the rocket city. In the church where I preach, we have lots of engineers, just a ton of them. Really smart people. But it's not their intelligence in missile defense that brings the light. I think missile defense is important, but it's not where the light comes from. The light comes, and they know it from them because they're in the Word of God. The light comes because they're Christians. In your house, which would you say is the most important light? The chandelier that's in the dining room with all those little prisms. That's kind of beautiful. Got a little dimmer switch. Comes on. Or that light at the top of the basement stairs, where it's really dark and it just hangs and it's a single bulb and you have a string to pull. Which one's the most important? Which one's the most important? And the answer is that if you want to save your life, it's probably the one at the top of the basement stairs. Let me tell you what Jesus said. He said, you're the light of the world. You are the light of the world. Now to say, are we going to be different? Well, yeah. Either we're going to be different or we're not really the light of the world, right? All right, let's continue. You're the light of the world. The light of the world. Now, there's a senselessness of hiding your light. And he uses some illustrations here, and he says, so you take a candle, and you don't take a candle and you put it under a bushel. And we used to sing that when I was a kid, because when I was a kid, I had this figured out. When I first became a Christian, I was 13 years old, and I had been singing this song a long time. Hide it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine. Well, because this is the illustration that Jesus gives, and he says this doesn't make any sense. Nobody lights a candle and puts it under a bushel. Sometimes Christians do that. Sometimes they do. So, I have a Bible, and I will carry my Bible openly to worship, or I would carry my Bible to a youth rally. But I wouldn't carry it to school. Why not? No, I mean it. Why not? Why not? Well, because I don't know. I just think I think I would be kind of embarrassed. Why? Who told you that? Who told you that? Who told you should be? What is that? It's pushback from the world. And the devil, he's got this thing figured out. And he just makes us sense that we ought to have some sort of an embarrassment about our light. Go to a restaurant, do you bow your head and pray? Listen to this old preacher. Don't ever eat your food without praying. Don't ever do it. And I don't care. If you were at the White House, would you, and you invited to come to one of those state dinners, that'd be kind of fun. I'd love to do that. But I can tell you this. I'd turn to the people next to me and I would say, would you excuse me? I want to give thanks for my food. That's important, see, because I don't want to put my light under a bushel. And we'll tell you something else, too. When I come to worship God, you say I'm a teenager. So I want to ask you a question about your worship. Do you really worship? Or is it, when you sing, do you sing like you're worshiping? Are you worshiping? When you're eating the Lord's Supper, are you really eating the Lord's Supper and discerning the Lord's body? Or is it just a little bit uncool to sing out, uncool to really pray, uncool to really get serious about the Lord's Supper? Where are we about that? And I'm telling you that this is about hiding my light under a bushel. No. I'll tell you something else too that I think is interesting, is that the world often, in reference to morality, takes leave of its senses, and it does nonsensical things. And right now, man, we're eat up with it, aren't we? So I heard the other day that, I don't know, somewhere, the hospital where the baby was born agreed to not put the gender on the birth certificate because the parents wanted to make sure that everybody understood that you don't know the gender of a baby until he or she, until it decides what it's going to be. Are you crazy or what? Is that just, that is nonsense, isn't it? It doesn't make any sense. That's just stupid, right? I heard somebody the other day on the left on a radio talk show called in and he was talking and he said, he's some government official, and he said, we're going to keep on defending a woman's right to declare herself when she's pregnant. She's got a right to decide when she's pregnant. Really? But I guess one of those makes just about as much sense as the other, right? And both of them are nonsensical. It just doesn't make any sense. But if we're not careful, now sometimes Christians do nonsensical things. And if you have your light, if you're a Christian and you're carrying the light of Jesus Christ, then to cover it up, to hide it under a bushel, is nonsensical. And sometimes Christians do nonsensical things. When you grow up and you have your children, they grow up to be teenagers. Don't do dumb things with them sexually. And by that I mean, teach them the truth, teach them what's right, and don't try to manipulate it or try to stick a little bit of the world in there. Look, let their light shine. And so you say, my boy there, he's 17. Got that girlfriend. She's a pretty little filly. She's really pretty. But we're Christians, and so I teach him and tell her, now you save yourself for marriage. And then we send them to the prom. Really? That's really dumb. I remember being 17, and a 17-year-old boy has a hard time keeping his hands off the girls, off his girlfriend. She's driving him crazy. And she's having a hard time too, and it's not very easy. It's hard to do to save yourself for marriage, but you better do that, because if you eat your cake today, you'll have a crummy tomorrow. That's the truth. Mama says, you save yourself for marriage. Now, honey, let me make sure that prom dress fits you real good. Really? Okay, so let's go to the prom, and I'm 17 years old, and I already have a hard time being pure the way I should, but I'm fighting this to do what the Lord wants me to do. But now I'm going to be here, and I'm going to watch you move your body to the beat of that music in this dimly lit room. That's really dumb. You know that? Really? Okay, you know why that's so dumb? It's because we're getting too much into the world. We're letting the world come inside of us, and we're putting something over the top of our candle. That's what we're doing. You say, now, honey, you remain pure. You keep yourself pure. I love those short shorts. Don't you look good? Don't you? Really? Really? And so you get on Facebook. You say, here's our pictures from the beach. Me and my friends, we took selfies in our bathing suits on the beach. And we tried to look real sexy. Put it on Facebook. What's happening? I'll tell you what's going on here is that we've gotten into some nonsense. Huh? Is that nonsense? Because, out of one side of my mouth, I'm saying, I'm carrying the light. I'm a Christian. I'm following King Jesus. Out of the other side, I'm saying, but I'm of the world. I'm really of the world. And Jesus says about the light, you are the light of the world. All right. Don't put your candle under a bushel. Here's the second thing. You got to love Jesus with courage. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but they put them on, are you ready for this? They put it on a candlestick, and it gives light to all that's in the house. So that is to say that not only am I not going to put it under a bushel, I'm not going to be ashamed. This is a big one. Are there times when you're embarrassed to be a Christian? I'm not going to ask for a show of hands or anything, but are there times, can you think of times right now when it's a little bit embarrassing to be a Christian? And if you can think of a time when that's difficult for you, I really want you to ask yourself why. What is it that makes that difficult? Why is that difficult? And the answer is because the prince of this world has a cosmos. The prince of this world has an agenda. He is the prince of the power of the air, and he creates this embarrassment. So what I'm challenging you to do is to keep the bushel off your light and put it on a candlestick and let it give light to all that's in the house. Now this is so. I want to be specific and talk about one more thing about this. I want to be really specific here because I think that you're going to be hit pretty hard with this in your generation. I know you will. And it's this homosexual thing. So the world with its prince has a real script that you're supposed to follow about this. And the script says things like this, that if you're tempted toward homosexuality, you're gay. You are gay. That's, of course, a lie. We don't apply that logic to other kinds of sin. You say, I'm tempted to steal. Well, you're a thief. No, I'm not. I'm tempted towards sleeping with other men's wives. Well, you're an adulterer. No, I'm not. Temptation is not the same thing as sin. And being tempted toward homosexuality does not make you gay. That's a fallacy. You say, yeah, well, I've experimented with it before. Wait a minute. The world's script says that is who you are. But then the second, and of course that's not true, but the second thing is that if it's who you are, that reasonable people are going to celebrate this with you. And that if you come out of the closet, you're wonderful. Because the best thing you can do in life is to be true to yourself. That's the script. Furthermore, anybody that disagrees with that, anybody that doesn't go along with that ideology is your enemy, is worthy of your hate, ought to be despised. In the church, what's about to happen is this. We're going to have a lot of people go to hell over the homosexual thing. I really think that. and the freedoms in America that we enjoy so very much, the religious freedoms, I think ultimately, and I don't have a crystal ball or anything to see the future, but I think that our religious freedoms ultimately will be sacrificed on the altar of homosexual rights, because those two things, Christianity and homosexuality, can't coexist. It's not that we're going to be militant and hurt anybody. We're not. But what's being demanded of us, we cannot do. We cannot agree with the world's script. We can't go along with that. So where we're going to get hurt, now listen to this old preacher, we're not going to get hurt because large numbers of Christians are going to start being gay. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that, well, some, but that's not going to be big. What's going to be big is not Romans 1:26 where he calls it vile affection. It's verse 32. And verse 32 says, you can't go along with it. You can't endorse it. You can't applaud it. You can't be part of this. So I can't agree to the script. I can't agree to it because if I do, he says, I'm worthy of death. So you know what? That's where it's going to hurt us. Because we're going to keep listening to the world, and the world's going to say, you got to follow the script of our prince. And if you don't, you're worthy of our hate. Well, I already knew you were going to hate me. Jesus told me that a long time ago. He said you hated him too. That's okay. It just makes me know I'm with him. It's okay. Don't put your light under a bushel. Put it on a candlestick. And incidentally and parenthetically, we go to 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 9, and he says, Don't deceive yourself. Don't lie to yourself. And he names off some sins there. And he says, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, homosexuals, nor sodomites, thieves, covetous, drunkards, extortioners. None of these will inherit the kingdom of God. And then he says this remarkable thing. And such were some of you. Wow, that's pretty interesting. He's talking to the Christians, the church in Corinth, and he says, y'all used to do these kinds of things, but not anymore. Now you're washed and sanctified and justified in the name of the Lord Jesus. Well, that tells me a lot. It tells me that they could change. They became Christians and they quit doing those sins. It tells me something else, too, about Christians. How do you think those people learned that what they were doing was wrong? Where did they get it? How did they know? And the answer is the Christians told them. The answer is the Christians made friends with people of the world, and they had conversations and they studied with them, and eventually these people who were practicing all of these kinds of sins, including homosexuality, eventually learned the truth, and they said, okay, I'll stop. It's what God wants. I will stop this. Now, I don't know if they ever became attracted to members of the opposite sex and if they ever married somebody else. I don't know that, but I know this. They stopped committing this sin of homosexuality. Why? Because Christians were a light. That's why. Because Christians were light in a dark, dark world. Christians weren't mean. Christians weren't violent. Christians were kind, even to their enemies. But they always told the truth because they were the light. The power of many lights. Jesus says, a city set up on a hill cannot be hid. I love that. What's a city but a collection of lights? And the bigger the city is, of course, the farther away you can see the light. And it's that way in your youth group. But let me tell you something. If you have a youth group of a dozen kids and 6 of them are worldly, I mean, they profess Christianity, but they're really worldly in their mentality, then the 6 that are really the light, I mean, their weight in being Christians is doubled. And I can tell you there are youth groups like this. The ones that are really trying to be Christians face the hardest persecution among kids in their own youth group. And why is that? And it's because we get worldly. What's the world? What's the world? It's cosmos. The world is an ideology. It's an order of things, an arrangement of things from the prince who is the devil. And we can live like the world. And the fact of the matter is, we're not confused about this. We're not. We understand it. We just don't always live by it. And here's the last one. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Galatians 2:20. I'm crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And that's pretty interesting. So the light that's in you is really him. Little boy said to his father, Daddy, how tall am I? Oh, I don't know. I guess you're about 4 feet. How tall was Jesus? Well, maybe he was about 6 feet. Doesn't that mean that if Jesus lives in me that he sticks out? Yeah, I guess it does. Stephen in Acts chapter 7 was stoned because he was preaching Jesus. I mean, they threw rocks at him until he died. And the Bible says that before he died, his face shone with a bright light. How do you like that? I don't think it was because he went to some school to learn face shining. It was because Jesus was in him. It was because he loved Christ enough to die for him. And that's how it'll be with you. You follow King Jesus. I'm crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, not I, but Christ lives in me. He lives in me. In the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by my faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Look, you are charged to be the light of the world. You may not become a rocket scientist or a great physician, or maybe you will. But that won't make you the dispenser of light. You're the dispenser of light because you're a Christian. And that puts a great burden on us. That's who we are. You say, are we different? Well, yeah. I mean, the fact is that you follow King Jesus and you'll be different like he was. You're his disciple. You follow him around. You live by what he says. Child of God. Okay, my time is up. I want to sing with you in heaven. And we will, you know. We live here for a while, and then we'll go on to the other side. We're the light. It's not boastful. It's humble. And I want to know if there's somebody here tonight who needs to become a Christian, to say, I'm ready. I want to call him my king. I want to obey the gospel. I want to follow him. I want to give myself as a living sacrifice. I want to be baptized for the forgiveness of my sins. I want to walk with him all of my life. And maybe you need to be restored. I've let the world in my life. Truth is, I profess Christianity, but the reality is worldly. I need to make that right, and now would be a great time. We're going to sing a song of encouragement. If you'd like to respond, come.
Speech on. Timer button selected. Music recognition. Apple TV remote. Hearing device. Apple TV camera. Flashlight. Calculator. Timer selected. Screen recording.